Well, hello there. Long time no see. It's been quite some time, at least it feels like it, since I recorded one of these things. The last week and a half, shit's been busy. And when it hasn't been busy, I have been chilling and vibing hard by smoking some very strong dope. And don't judge me too harshly, people, but I got back into Skyrim. Oh, God. Some people have gambling addiction, sex addiction, alcohol addiction, opioid addictions. My addiction? Skyrim, baby. For whatever reason, that game, even though I have played it and beaten it probably dozens, if not hundreds of times, I still find new things every so often. So when I haven't been slammed with work or family stuff or house stuff, I then veg out hard on Dankage and Skyrim. So this recording, there's a lot to get to. It's been over a week and a half. As you can imagine, a lot's happened since then. Starting with the first huge seismic shifting and probably the largest, most important historical trade in Seattle sports history. A couple days ago, the Seattle Seahawks agreed to trade Russell Wilson, their quarterback of, I believe, 10 years, 8 or 9 Pro Bowls. He is the winningest quarterback in our franchise history. I think he is, if not number one, definitely in the top 5 most winningest quarterbacks for the first 10 years. His touchdown to interception ratios, completion percentage, yada, 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 yada. You go on and on praising Russell Wilson. He is a first ballot Hall of Famer. That's common sense. He is arguably a top 5, top 3 quarterback. And we traded him to the Denver Broncos for 2 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks. I believe we got a 4th or a 5th from them as well, plus 3 players. We sent Russ and a 4th rounder to Denver. This instantly, in my estimation, makes Denver Broncos a Super Bowl favorite. Is it the number 1 Super Bowl favorite? No, I still think a few teams are better than Denver, even with the Russell Wilson addition. However, it makes the AFC West the new NFC West. Russ leaves the hardest, toughest division and went to the AFC and now made that division the toughest, hardest one. Because now you have Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, Derek Carr, and now Russell Wilson in the same division. Ooh, football's going to be fun. It pains me to see him go, although I think it was inevitable. If we weren't worried about the dead money, I would have traded him last offseason, and we probably could have got even more for him. I think that it's better to rip the Band-Aid off now, so to speak, and trade him now when you're still able to get this treasure trove of picks and players. Whereas if we held on to another season, we may not get this next year. He may play like shit. He may get injured again. You just don't know. So you're not trading him at a high point, but you are trading him relatively high, I guess I should say. Now, my instant reaction to this trade was that I gave it a B+. However, speaking to one of my buddies, he brought up the dead money hit. I guess this trade has the second most dead money trade in NFL history. The first one was last season when Philadelphia traded Carson Wentz to the Colts. I think there was something like 30 million dead money there. Russell Wilson, I believe it's 26 or 27 million dead money. I don't know how that gets worked out. My buddy, of course, thinks this was an F trade because of that. That's a big point. And I told him, well, I don't know what that actually means. Does that mean that we just instantly take a 30 million hit? Or does that kind of get balanced by the money we save? Because we are saving money by getting his contract off the books, but that guaranteed money, I don't know. I'm not a salary cap guru. I don't get it. And then a couple hours later, to pour salt on our wounds, the Seahawks then cut Bobby Wagner, another first ballot Hall of Famer that we had playing middle linebacker for the past 10 years as well. Wagner and Russ got drafted back to back in 2012. So it's tough seeing two icons leave, let alone leave on the same day. I truly do believe that this is the most historic day in Seattle sports history. It's up there with losing the Sonics. We really didn't trade anybody, though. We just lost a franchise. So I still think that's way worse than the Russell Wilson, Bobby Wagner trade and cut. Losing King Griffey Jr. hurt, losing Alex Rodriguez hurt, trading Gary Payton, trading Sean Kemp, Ray Allen. You can go down the list. Losing Matt Hasselbeck, losing Sean Alexander, Lofo Tutupu. I mean, I could go on and on and on. However, nothing compares, in my estimation, to trading Russell Wilson. Now, we did get 5 draft picks and 3 players. One of those players is a kind of a bust of a quarterback. He's still young, Drew Lock. I think he's 24 or 25. He doesn't look good in Denver, and I can't imagine he's going to play any better here. I don't know if he's going to be our starting quarterback. I hope not. Looking at this year's draft class for quarterbacks, it's pretty weak. But now we have 3 picks in the first 2 rounds. If I was drafting with those 3 picks, I would take 2 pass rushers and 1 offensive lineman. I would not take a quarterback. I do not like this year's talent. Now, Pete and John Schneider may look at the quarterback class and say, well, we can make something out of nothing here. Maybe they like Matt Corral, that kid from Ole Miss. Maybe they like Malik Willis from Liberty. I don't know. Personally, if I'm going to draft a quarterback, I like Kenny Pickett from Pittsburgh. And there is a kind of a jewel in the rough, so to speak. This kid is named Akil Glass. If he's available in the 5th, 6th round, I think we could draft him, and he would instantly be the number 2 quarterback. I think that highly of him. Possibly he could play a few games next year. However, just backing all this up, it's tough to see Russell Wilson go. On a personal level, not a fan level. Let me strip away my Seattle Seahawk fandom and my Seattle sports fandom. Let me strip all that away and look at it mano a mano. I personally am happy to see Russell Wilson go because he creeps me out. I don't like the phony mask he wears, the always compete, the Mr. Unlimited. All that stuff is just cringy. He is the most cringeworthy quarterback in the NFL. All this religious nonsense, all that compete, Seattle Seahawk style, and him and Sierra and his social media. Oh, it was brutal. So that I'm happy to see go because he is a cringy, uncomfortable, psychopathic almost kind of bro. So on that level, I'm happy to see him go. Now, if you're asking me, Angelo, what would you do if you were in charge of the Seattle Seahawks and you just traded away your star quarterback and your star linebacker? And you have 3 picks in the first 2 rounds, pretty early picks too. Well, I told you what I would do with the picks. I would also call around to see some mid-level talent. Philadelphia, they have a number 2 quarterback, Gardner Minshew. Local fans here know and love him. I think we could probably get him from Philadelphia relatively cheap. I think that the Green Bay Packers, they have a backup, Jordan Love, that they drafted in the 1st or 2nd round a couple of years ago. He hasn't looked good in limited action because their quarterback is probably the best quarterback playing, Aaron Rodgers, and they're signing him to the largest contract in NFL history. So you may be able to get Jordan Love for maybe a 3rd or a 4th. I don't know. Gardner Minshew, Jordan Love. Then you have some free agents like the Jameis Winstons, Ryan Fitzpatrick's. I don't know. Maybe you could swing a trade for Tyler Heineke from Washington. I don't know. You have a few others like, what's that jabroni from the Colts? Jacoby Brissett. You have Tyrod Taylor from Houston. So there's a few options there. And depending what Houston does with their star quarterback, Deshaun Watson, I'd be interested to see if the Seahawks are interested in that. However, you would have to trade for Deshaun Watson, and he has something like 22 civil lawsuits going against him, but that should be clarified, I think, today or by the weekend. Houston wants 2 first-round picks and more for him. I would say, look, we'll give you a 3rd, and you could be done with this drama. And see what would happen. We've traded with Houston a few times. I think there's a good relationship between Seattle and Houston. Who knows? But that's tough. It's tough seeing your not only your franchise icon, but icon of the sport. I think if you ask any casual NFL sports fan or even any casual sports fan, the mass majority know Russell Wilson. He's probably a top 5 most popular player in the sport. So yeah, it hurts. It hurts. This offseason and draft is probably the most important offseason and draft since Pete and John first got here. Switching gears, the greedy Major League Baseball strike is finally over. I don't know if we're still set to miss any games, but the fucking owners were so greedy. And, you know, it's not just one-sided here. The Players Association, who I will always support, I always support unions, they were not willing to compromise, it seems, on most anything until the 25th hour. And you look at what the players got and what the owners got, it does seem that no side really won to my uneducated eyes. You know, I'm not a labor dispute guy. I can't tell you what's right or wrong on this. However, it's looking like both sides had to compromise. The big thing for a fan's perspective is that they're expanding the playoffs, and we finally have universal designated hitter for the National League and American League. So, before the lockout, the offseason for Major League Baseball was gearing up to be one of the most important, seismic, and just exciting off seasons in Seattle Mariner history. We were coming off a 90-something win season. We just missed the playoffs, barely. We had a bunch of cash. We had one of the top farm systems in the game, and then the strike happened. So we have a couple more weeks until the start of the season. I'm hoping the Mariners either today or over the weekend or in the coming days start to fill the holes that we didn't quite plug in before the lockout, predominantly third base, an outfield spot, and a couple starting pitchers. But yeah, it is kind of odd to see football and baseball offseason happening at the same time. So you're seeing free agency and trades and cuts and releases and retirements for both sports happening simultaneously, which doesn't happen that often or if ever to my knowledge. So, well, for the Seattle Seahawks, it's a little murky. For the Seattle Mariners, it's looking a little bright, in my opinion. But enough of the sports talk. I wanted to get that out of the way. We still have the atrocious, evil, horrific, and just depressing and sad and depraved Russia invasion of Ukraine. Since we last spoke, I got to give the Israeli Prime Minister, the new guy, I'm drawing a blank on his name, I think it's Bennett something. He is trying to play moderator and, you know, say what you will about moderation or Israel or whatnot and how Putin is not going to do anything. Still, you got to respect the attempt. Russia did offer a ceasefire package to the Ukraine. It was under a few conditions. Number one, that Ukraine would never join NATO. Ukraine would give up Chechnya. Ukraine would give up those other 2 separatist regions, and that they would also have to demilitarize. Now, I, as Zelensky or as a Ukrainian, or just not just them, but just as someone who wants peace here, I would have told Russia, fine, we'll take almost all of this for a ceasefire to make a stop to the bloodshed. We would have to get some things from you too, like an actual written document saying that Russia will immediately stop and will never do this again. And if they do, you're going to face military action, not just from Ukraine, but from the United Nations, NATO, immediately. Immediately. However, I would not demilitarize. I mean, that's insane. In fact, that is... It's such a disgusting requirement that Russia gave them. I mean, it's absurd. You were just invaded, and now you're telling that same country they can never militarize again? Go fuck your mother, Putin. That is disgusting. You know that wasn't good. You know that was a non-starter. So I would have told Russia, okay, we're still going to have weapons, obviously. And instead of just giving you these regions, can we at least have a vote? Russia would probably say fuck no, but at least you have to try. And then I would take the deal, minus the demilitarization. That's the one point that I would not relent on. Now, some people would say, well, then you're just letting Ukraine surrender. Well, true, possibly. I don't know if you want to use that word. However, you're also stopping, for all intents and purposes, human rights atrocities. You're stopping bloodshed. You're stopping terrorism. And now you're able to regroup and really hit Russia hard wherever you want to hit them. Now, everything that we're reading as an American citizen or just anyone from the West, you're constantly being told that the sanctions not only are surprising Russia, but are devastating them. And then you hear what's coming out of Russia, out of their state propaganda, media, and news and whatnot, and it's all the complete opposite. So I want to trust and believe our media, our sources, our intelligence. However, they have a spotty record at best. But if the sanctions we're putting on Russia are like any other kind of sanctions we've done throughout history, they are hurting Russia. They are bankrupting Russia. People are suffering in Russia, which is sad, but you're hoping that the people will kind of revolt in a sense, or that they will finally say fuck it and do a Russian-style coup. But I don't know. I'm not Russian. I don't know how they look at things. I don't know what their ideologies are as an everyday citizen. I think I have a pretty good idea what Putin's ideologies and outlook are on things. I don't think he's going to stop until he gets exactly what he wants, which is Iron Curtain 2.0. And if I was Poland or Moldova or the Baltics, I'd be scared shitless right now. And now I'm hearing talk about biochemical warfare is on the horizon, and it's sad. You feel helpless. You feel powerless. I would like to do something besides rant and rave about it on a podcast and talk about it to friends and family and post memes about it. But what can I do? I will do what I can to house refugees. I've talked about that before on this podcast. My lady friend that worked for the cruise line, she is beside herself. She was telling me that this is the worst thing that's ever happened to her. How could it not be? I'm not going to say what city in Ukraine her family lives in, but she was telling me that her mother is not wanting to flee yet. She wants to wait until the Russians are literally on their doorstep, which is a dangerous game to play, but it's life. It's their home. It's their culture. It's their society. You know, what would you do? If you're told by a family member overseas that, hey, Washington is almost in control of Russia, Russia's going to bomb the airports and you got to get the hell out of there. And I look outside at Auburn and say, well, that sounds like a Seattle problem. There's no one here at Auburn yet. Why would Russia want to take over Auburn? Even though I can see the smoke and the fire from my window, it's not here yet. Well, I can kind of understand that. You know, my home is here. My shit is here. My friends and family. My life is here. And you want me to pack up and run. It's tough. Everyone has an opinion based on nothing. Everyone is an online expert. You know, I love it. People were experts on COVID. Now they're experts on Russia or Ukraine geopolitics. They were experts on the Iraq war. I mean, it goes on and on and on. People hear what they want to hear and they regurgitate it and think, well, I'm as smart as a scientist, or I'm as smart as an expert, historian, whatever. That's truly the hubris and the pride of the West. Well, I said something and I can't be wrong because I feel that way. So therefore I'm wrong and you're right. That individualistic nonsense. It's all about me, me, me. And you cannot understand anything until it happens to you and you experience it firsthand. It's disgusting. But you just wish you could do more than just bitch like I'm doing. But anyway, enough about sports and the sadness that is World War III. We should move on to other stories, but it got me thinking, if there is a World War III here that involves more than just Russia and Ukraine, you would have to think that Russia would have allies from the Middle East. You would have some Eastern European allies. I don't know what India and China would do. They seem to be sitting on the fence trying to appease both sides. But with China being a fellow communist nation, you would think Russia and China would join forces, but you don't know. India, I don't know what they would do. You know, there was a reason why India has done nothing in terms of sanctions with Russia, you know, because they're right fucking there. So you don't know if India would join them or not. You may also have a three-sided war for the first time. Well, maybe not the first time. I shouldn't speak in absolutes like that, but from my instant knowledge right now, I do not remember a large scale war that had three sides. It's usually, mano y mano, one on one, Axis versus the Allies. However, right now, I really could see a three-pronged war between Russia and China, and then you have India and whoever else want to join the India side, and then you would have the West and Europe. I don't know. I hope that doesn't happen. I hope that some Russian hero will take Putin out the KGB way, but there's no guarantee that whoever would succeed Putin would be any better. You'd like to think he or she would. Okay, let's face facts. It would definitely be a he. I can't imagine Russia electing a woman. I'm sorry, Russia. I don't think that's in your cards. But I don't know. It's all you can have is hope, and sometimes hope can get you in trouble. But right now, I think that's all you can do to try to keep yourself from just getting down in the doldrums, so to speak. Because whenever I look at the news involving Russia and Ukraine, I just want to weep. How can you not? If you have a heart, how can you not? I just filled up my gas tank. It was $50 for 9.5 gallons. It's easy for me because I'm not living paycheck to paycheck like the vast majority of Americans are. So I'm willing to do what I can to help this crisis by paying more for things. But when I was filling up, I saw the frowns and the frustration on everyone there, and some random guy started bitching to me about gas and how he can't believe it. And I know most Americans would say they're willing to pay more to help Ukraine, but when push comes to shove and you actually have to put that debit card in, put your PIN number in and see how much you're paying, I don't know. There could be some resentment there. There could be some, some low-level distrust or outright hatred for what's happening, and that could affect people moving forward, doing the quote-unquote right thing. I don't know, man. It's a sad state of affairs. And when you call out the hypocrisy from the U.S., doing all of these sanctions, all of these regulations, pulling out of all these deals with Russia because of what they're doing to Ukraine. And when you remind people, well, sure, but it's not like America does this for every human rights atrocities happening around the world. I mean, look what America is currently doing in Yemen, Somalia, Syria, Libya. I believe we're doing something besides Somalia in Africa. And then you look at our history with Afghanistan, Iraq, Vietnam. Oh, fuck, I forgot. There's another one current happening right now. Palestine, how we're supporting that genocide. So it's like, whether you want to hear it or not, the U.S. has been on the wrong side a lot in our history when it comes to human rights and war atrocities and being just a war criminal. Most American presidents in the 20th, 21st century are technically war criminals. We don't want to hear that, but it's fact. It's true. If you go off of the United Nations definition of war crimes, the U.S. is right there. Not just us, most of Europe, most first world nations are there. Unfortunately, that's the cost of doing business. So when people are calling out hypocrisy and then they get yelled at as, or they get demonized as unpatriotic, un-American, Russia sympathizers, you're like, no, that's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying at all. At all. But you just have to look at yourself in the mirror. And even if you analyze, how did we get to this point? It's not as if Putin woke up a couple weeks ago and said, fuck it, I'm going to invade Ukraine. No, you have to follow the breadcrumb trail, so to speak. How did we get there? A lot of people point to the 2007-2008 NATO accord thing when Obama was there, and we went against Russia and we let in a bunch of nations that he didn't want in. There was no compromise. And then we kept sanctioning Russia, deservedly so. Again, I'm not pro-Russia on this. I'm not trying to humanize them at all. I'm just saying you have to look at how we got here. And America could have done better. Certainly Europe and our NATO allies could have done better in certain cases. That doesn't excuse what's happening in Ukraine. But you have to be able to look at how we got there. You have to. Or else you're doomed to make the same mistakes over and over and over again. And that seems to be America's marching order. We refuse to look at our past. We don't want to acknowledge our bloody, dirty past. It's not all dirty and bloody and racist and sexist. It's not all of that, but we do need to look at the blemishes and the bruises and not just the wins and the medals and the glory days and the wonderful things that America is and continues to be. I mean, America really is a light, a beacon of light on the hill. We really are in a lot of ways. The majority of ways we are, but to say that we're infallible, to say that we can't look at ourselves and look at what we've done. I mean, currently, if you look at all the current dictatorships in the world, we have sponsored a lot of them. I don't know the exact percentage, but we have. We've supplied them with money or weapons. I mean, it's... Anyways, I'm not trying to shit on America here. My point is you have to look at yourself in the mirror with anything. A failed relationship, a firing of a job, an injury, something. You can't just be a victim. You can't just say everyone else is out to get you. It's the world against you, blah, 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 blah. That mentality, let the boomers keep it. But no, you have to look at yourself in the mirror and just make sure that you're not putting yourself on a pedestal of decency and that how you got to this shithole area or the shithole part of your life is everyone else's problem but your own. So anyway, speaking of soapboxes, let me get off mine here and let's continue on with other things. I forgot to mention this when I was talking about Yemen, but Angelina Jolie, probably one of the most famous actresses out there, she spoke about the Yemen refugee crisis and compares it to what's happening in Ukraine. Let me go ahead and pull up the article here. Angelina Jolie, acting as an envoy of the United Nations High Commission for Refugees, landed in Yemen, seeking to draw attention to the ongoing civil war there and the related refugee crisis, which she compared to the situation in Ukraine. As we continue to watch the horrors unfolding in Ukraine and call for an immediate end to the conflict and humanitarian access, I'm here in Yemen to support people who also desperately need peace. The situation here is one of the worst humanitarian crises in the world, with one civilian killed or injured every hour in 2022. A economy devastated by war and over 20 million Yemenis depending on humanitarian assistance to survive. Yemen citizens have since 2014 endured a civil war between its Saudi Arabia-backed government and Houthi rebels that have claimed the lives of 100,000 citizens. This week, 1 million people were forced to flee the horrific war in Ukraine. If we learn anything from this shocking situation, it is that we cannot be selective about who deserves support and whose rights we defend. Everyone deserves the same compassion. The lives of civilian victims of conflict everywhere are of equal value. After 7 years of war, the people of Yemen also need protection, support, and above all, peace. I don't know how you could argue that. And on the same day as this, Biden bombed Somalia. I mean, goddamn. U.S. carries out first airstrike in Somalia since August 2021. Oh, I mean, again, we're bombing Somalia. That is like the bully in high school, probably a 6'4" jock quarterback, is picking on the Down syndrome, drooling kid in a wheelchair. That's exactly what this is like. So, again, you have to look at yourself and your country in the goddamn mirror if you want to learn anything in this world and not just be lazy and just accept whatever rhetoric you're being told. Whatever the spin is. It's lazy and it's quite, not to be dramatic, but it's dangerous. But I swear that's it for geopolitical news. But let's move on to some fun stuff here, shall we? Well, I don't know if it's fun, but let's move on. Chile inaugurates its youngest president ever. Now, for some of my listeners, the ones that were public school educated in America, Chile isn't just a delicious food. It is actually a country. Chile's new leftist president, whose promise of a renewed social justice-focused nation inspired a historic voter turnout, is now in office. Gabriel Boric, who just turned 36, I mean, that's my age. Can you imagine if America elected anyone that wasn't a 70-year-old old white male with dementia? Oh, what a change of events that could have been. Gabriel Boric is the youngest president in Chile's history. His cabinet is majority female. It includes Defense Minister Maya Fernandez, the niece of Salvador Allende, the ex-president who was overthrown In a 1973 military coup, she will be in charge of the armed forces. Boric, a former student leader, also brought on colleagues from the protest movement that shook up the country's higher education system 10 years ago. Among them are communications director Camila Vallejo and Ezequiel Sitches, a surgeon who helped conceive a successful response to COVID-19. She will be the first female Minister of Interior and Public Security. Boric has promised to remake Chile, moving it from a neoliberalist model to one centering on social justice. Ooh, be careful, social justice. That terminology doesn't fly too good over here in America. Proposals include offering subsidies for families that can't afford home internet, taxing the rich, ensuring access to birth control, and creating a truth commission on human rights violations from the last dictatorship that lasted from 73 to 1990. Oh my God, just stop right there. Can you even comprehend if this great country did just those things? Make home internet a human right, taxing the rich, oh my God. Don't even get me started on that. Ensuring access to birth control. I mean, I thought that's what most first world countries do. And creating a truth commission on human rights violations. Can you imagine if we had that here? To look at our past human rights atrocities and acknowledge them, apologize, and use them as a learning tool to move forward? Oh, I mean, this is like fantasy stuff. This is like stuff you would only see in a make-believe movie or a book or something. Boric also vowed to give reparations to people who were gravely injured in 2019's mass protests against low wages and high living costs. Oh, reparations. In this country? In this economy? I'm all for it. A major part of Boric's agenda is also making Chile's highly unequal economy more green, pushing measures like banning new coal plants, oh, what a thought, and more regulations for extraction of copper and lithium. Again, what a dream. What a dreamboat. Boric's plan will hinge on congressional support, which is still uncertain. Oh, I mean, that's nothing new. This Friday, the new legislature will choose its leadership and committee designations. A new constitution being written by an elected convention might help Boric along. The new text will be voted on this summer. I mean, that's amazing. That's huge. I mean, again, let's back up to his age. 36 years old. When was the last time the U.S. had a president that was just not a senior citizen? Obama? Actually, how old was Obama when he became president? Let's see here. How old was Obama when he became president? I want to say he was in his early 50s. Let's see. Oh, he's 47. Okay, that's still pretty good. I mean, that's excellent, actually. I would take that again. Just take someone who's in their mid-40s, who's not just broken by life and just doesn't hate anything that's new. Oh, what a dream. So I'll be watching this quite closely. I may not agree with everything that this Gabrielle Boric is doing, but just what I'm reading here, I don't disagree with any of it. And if anything, it's something that I wish more Americans would follow and learn from and try to copy. Moving on to domestic stories here. New Mexico governor just signed a bill to make college tuition free. For most New Mexico residents, college will now be officially tuition free. New Mexico Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham signed Senate Bill 140, otherwise known as the New Mexico Opportunity Scholarship Act. First introduced in 2019, the plan will waive tuition for any students attending any in-state public school or tribal college, including community colleges. For over a quarter of a century, New Mexico has been a national leader in providing free college to its residents. A fully funded opportunity scholarship opens the door for every New Mexican to reach higher, strengthening our economy, our families, and our communities. Signing this legislation sends a clear message to New Mexicans that we believe in them and that the contributions they will make for their families and the future of our great state. Eligible students must enroll in a minimum of 6 credit hours and maintain a grade point average of at least 2.5 during their time in college. The scholarship has already been awarded to more than 10,000 students over the last 2 years, but now $75 million has been allocated to the fund, according to the press release. That could support up to 35,000 students this fall alone, and allows part-time students and adult learners to take advantage as well. When Lujan Grisham first proposed making tuition free in 2019, many had questions. New Mexico State Senator David Gallegos, a Republican, who at the time was on the State House Education Committee, said he did not support the plan because it was not sustainable. Where do we take the money from? Public safety? Public education? I just don't know where we continue the money, he told CNN in 2019. Gallegos voted against the bill in February during the state Senate vote. Across the country, many states have moved to provide some sort of tuition-free college education, typically at the community college level. In 2019, California waived tuition for first-time full-time students attending 2 years of community college, expanding its existing California College Promise program. In 2021, North Carolina offered 2 years of free community college tuition to that year's high school graduates. And this year, the University of Texas established a $300 million endowment to expand tuition assistance programs across its 7 institutions. But completely free tuition at all levels of college has remained elusive. President Joe Biden has tried to completely waive tuition at just the community college level with little success. Well, we all know how I feel about that. Joe Biden's not trying hard enough. He could do an executive order, or he can actually put his money where the mouth is and actually do a little biting, not just barking about it. Same thing with releasing nonviolent criminals from prison. Same thing with legalizing marijuana. I just read this morning that Washington, D.C. has gone against the voters and is still not decriminalizing marijuana. The people voted for it, the government saying no. So what are we supposed to do? We voted for something, and the government saying, no, it's not going to happen. So then democracy doesn't matter in that instance. You're not listening to us. I hope every pothead, stoner, dank enthusiast in D.C. is walking around the Capitol buildings blowing Doge in the face of every fucking politician who said, well, I know you people voted for this, but we didn't vote for it, so it's not going to happen. Please make their lives a living fucking hell. Because what's democracy if it's in name only? Woo. Anyway, let me calm down here. That really pisses me off. But again, New Mexico, congratulations. I don't know why this country is so inept at taking care of the students. They acknowledge every time there's a State of the Union, every time there's a presidential debate, whenever something comes up, leading politicians at the both state and federal level will always say the right thing, that the current state of college tuition is disgusting, and it's it's fucking people over. It's one of the only things you don't lose by going through bankruptcy. I mean, come on. It's corrupt as all hell. And everyone says all the right things, but no one is willing to actually do it. I don't know why Biden cannot say, okay, we are not going to waive tuition for universities. Okay, not yet anyway. But at the very least, we can make trade schools and community colleges free. Do you know what kind of boon that would be for this country? I mean, I don't think I have enough time on this podcast to go over it, but the jobs it would create. It would help lower inflation. I mean, do you know how much it costs just to get standard plumbing or any kind of blue collar actual maintenance done? Let alone you have to schedule it. I mean, you're waiting weeks to get someone in here, and it's what, $150 just to have someone come over and take a look? Come on, we need more people. That is the whole point of capitalism, is that you have access to what you need and to choose from a plethora of sources. But again, this country loves the free market in name only, because unfettered capitalism is not a good thing. It's been proven time and time again. You can't do it. You need to balance out capitalism with socialism and communism a little bit. But socialism and communism are just buzzwords in this country that people just start frothing at the mouth about. They can't take it. Even if I was running for president, I would say I want this country to be 80% capitalism, 15% socialism, and 5% communism, because I think the socialism and the communism will help balance out the evils and the corruption and the income inequality at every level of capitalism. And I think, well, the majority of people my age and lower would see that as a good thing, but anyone who's retired would start having seizures of anger and start pissing and shitting themselves and frothing at the mouth and shooting blood out their eyes. No, they can't abide by it. I think the ultimate thing for boomers is that they can't allow someone getting something that they don't think they deserve. A handout. You can't give someone They usually find something financial that they deem is too much. It has to be just right. They can't imagine someone getting more than they deserve. Oh no, I had to work for what I got. Not really. Not really. You tell any white man that's a senior citizen of the privileges they had, they look at you like you're speaking Russian. They refuse to acknowledge a reality. They're just out of touch for the most part. Not all of them, but I would say the mass majority. But anyway, with that, I think we are done with the newsage. Let's talk a little personal stuff, shall we? I've done this a few times throughout their podcast, but I don't think I've done one of these in a while. I have had some listeners reach out in the past couple weeks, couple months, couple days, and ask me, where do I get my information? When I talk about the news, what are my sources? How do I discern misinformation from actual news and actual correct information, the data, the facts, blah, 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 blah. And I will always say first that I have been mistaken a few times. I will never say that I am infallible with my sources. I think that my time in college kind of gave me a one-up on how to kind of find out misinformation, yellow journalism, spin, all that shit. So let me just read off a few sources that I get my information from, and you can go out there and find your own or look up some of these and tell me yay or nay, whatever. So The Hill is where I get a lot of my news. Axios is another one. AP, the BBC, Seattle Times for local stuff. When I go on YouTube and I watch new media, I watch Breaking Points with Crystal and Sagar. I watch Secular Talk with Kyle Kalinske. Occasionally, I will watch Jimmy Dore, even though I'm not a huge fan of his. I also go on The Atlantic, The Guardian, and Business Insider, except I refuse to pay Business Insider. Reuters is a good one every now and then. And occasionally the Daily Beast, BBC, Daily Mail. There's a few of them. The Independent. And then there's a few freelance journalists that I also follow. Outside Kyle Kalinske of Secular Talk being the first. Glenn Greenwald, he's my favorite. Matt Taibbi, he's also my favorite. I mean, I guess I have a lot of favorites, so they're not really my favorite, but I hold them in high esteem. Abby Martin, Whitney Webb, to show that I'm not sexist, that women can do journalism too. And to a lesser extent, I don't consider these guys journalists at all, but they're more culture commentators and society commentators. But, you know, Jon Stewart, most of the time, Russell Brand, depending on who he brings on the podcast, Joe Rogan, of course, and Lex Friedman's another good one. So those are some good places, good sources, good journalists that I use. But anyway, moving on here. What's been going on with me for the past week and a half? I'm still online dating. I got it boiled down to two ladies. I'm talking to one about going on a date here soon. We have to wait a while because of our schedules just were not matching up, and they were conflicting a lot. So this is the first lady that I've been speaking to this long without going on a date first, but we do have a date scheduled for next week. So she is in the lead. There is a second one that is kind of newer, although she lives pretty far out. So she is a distant number 2 right now. But it's good that I'm having these conversations and that I'm not in the doldrums of despair because I'm not meeting anyone of note on the dating apps. So there is progress there, I hope. I did have a contractor come over and take a look at a few pain points of the house. I still am on the fence about what I want to do with this house moving forward. I think probably a good decision would be, let me stay here the rest of the year. Let me fix some things that have been bothering me and see how that affects my mental and emotional state towards this house. I'm going to have to reach out to a few other contractors specifically for my sprinkler system. And I have some appliance issues with my refrigerator freezer combo, and probably want to do a wellness check on my washer, dryer, and other things like that because I just am not good at that stuff. And even when I spend time researching on YouTube or other help links on Quora or whatnot online, I can't really get a straight answer. So I may just have to bite the bullet and pay the money for have a so-called expert to come over and take a look. But yeah, I think that's going to be a good first step. Let me fix the shit that's been bothering me. Let me get a kind of a new outlook, so to speak, on the house and maybe I won't feel so down about it. I could start putting some blood, sweat, and tears into the areas of the house and the house maintenance that I enjoy, predominantly the yard, the garden, which I'm very excited the weather's getting a little bit better. It's still cold as balls outside, but I'm still able to sneak outside every now and then and do a little bit of trimming, weed whacking, mowing, the fun shit. I like all that stuff. It also helps that I have some amazing, amazing, amazing friends. I'm very lucky in that regard. I have a lot of friends that are good with that kind of blue collar labor work that I'm garbage at. I'm mentally challenged when it comes to that. I had two buddies come over for basically a whole day to help me exchange and hook up a new water tank. And they also are helping me with some hose issues. So it pays to have good, reliable friends, and ones that you just don't use for, to get stuff out of them. You can't use people like that. I love them like brothers. I am very lucky to have a wide swath of circle of friends that I not only do I love and respect, but I view them as family. They're brothers to me. They're sisters to me. I'm very, very lucky in that regard, but I also have to acknowledge that a lot of it is by my doing. I make the push. I put the emphasis on keeping up these relationships. I'm 35. It's tough to have good friendships. It's hard these days, especially when you have friends that are married with families and multiple children. But it doesn't take a lot of effort to pick up the phone, send a call, send a text. I mean, we have so many ways to keep in touch these days that if you are worried that you don't have anyone or that you don't know if your friends are still your friends, you may just have to bite the bullet and reach out yourself. It may be anxiety, it may be depression, it may be nervousness, it could be a number of things that are stopping you, but if you just put yourself out there, at least you can't blame yourself for not trying. Although I am mad at one of my friends for seeing the Batman movie without me. He didn't even ask if I wanted to see it with him. He just assumed, even though he knows me, I love the guy, he's one of these brothers, I still have yet to see the Batman movie. I have been wanting to see this movie ever since it was announced, 2 years ago? And when that trailer dropped, my dick could only get so hard, people. And now it's been out for over a week and a half, and I have not seen it. I refuse to see it by myself, because I feel like that's the last straw before I become a cat lady, so to speak, that I just say, well, fuck it. If I'm seeing movies by myself, that means I can go to restaurants by myself, I can go travel by myself, I don't need no man, no woman, and next thing you know, I am a 50-year-old bachelor that are still on dating apps trying to hook up with 20 and 30-year-olds. I just will not and cannot let that happen. And the first step towards that is seeing movies by yourself. I've seen one movie by myself, and I hated every second of it. It was the Ant-Man sequel. I enjoyed the movie, but just being in a movie theater by myself, no. To me, it is a social event. I love nothing more than hooking up with my friends. We go get some food, we get drinks, we get some dankage, we do something beforehand, and we talk about what we're going to see. We're talking about how excited we are. We see the movie together, and then for another half hour after the movie, we chit-chat about it outside, or we go get more drinks or something. I mean, it's fun. It's a social event. I refuse to do that shit on my own. What else is going on with Angelo here? My parents are still alive. My mother just had her 72nd birthday. My father's 75th is... Oh, that's still far away. If my sister was alive, she would be 50, which is insane to think. That means she passed away 10 years ago. No, she passed away 9 years ago. So she would be 50 this year. Okay, it hasn't been her birthday yet. That's something that's tough, since I'm back online dating and talking to new people, and you kind of have to tell your history a little bit. I always get a little cagey when it comes to talking about my sister, because it's a pretty intimate subject. It's still it will always remain something that will make me emotional and dramatic, because how could it not? But I feel like you need to talk about these things to people when you're expecting the same thing from them. If I'm meeting a lady, I want her to be honest and open and truthful with me, and it's only respectful that I give her the same. And that means talking about things that you may not want to talk about. Maybe not on the first date, mind you, but if you continued with this person, you're going to have to tell them their deep, darkest secrets. But yeah, it's a little strange thinking what's happened since she's passed. My parents have gotten just older and older and older and just more morose and negative and misanthropic. Ugh, I joke, but I hope that I never get like my parents. They were both a cautionary tale for a plethora of reasons, but if I ever get to be 25% like them, I hope that if I'm with a woman then, or some friends, or my offspring, I hope that they would just take a very nice velvet pillow and just put it over my face for a few minutes and just end the suffering. Because I do not want to be like that. I do not want to be an old man who just gives up trying to better himself and who thinks that I know everything and any new thought is a waste of time and is wrong, and that the youth are steering this country in the wrong direction and life was so much better when I was young and full of piss and vigor and cum. No, I hope I never get like that. I hope I never think that the best my life is ever going to be, or the best that America is ever going to be, is right now, and anything after this point is just downhill. No, I can't abide that. I will not. And I hope that anyone listening here in a few decades, if I start to sound like that, do what needs to be done. Put that pillow over my face. Put that noose over my neck and give me that rickety stool, baby. Or draw me a bath and throw in a microwave, because we do not want more aged, angry, old, white men, or just old people in general. But with that, I think we're about done here. I did want to read you a really fun article and talk about me reconnecting with a very old friend that I have not seen in over a decade. And it was to say that it was a pleasure doesn't do it justice, but it was I've used the term seismic a lot on this podcast, but it really was, God, I need to get a thesaurus. I keep using the same words. I can't think of another word for seismic, but it was a huge emotional conversation where, well, I can just talk about it now since I'm already talking about it. So my first major job when I moved out to Covington, I was 18 years old, just moved out from home, moving in with 3 roommates. We were all going to Green River Community College, and my first job out here was working at U.S. Bank. And I got in with a group of people that fast became my family away from home, and we became, brothers and sisters. One of my great friends that I met there, and we had a really great relationship for up to this point, although for the last decade or so, we haven't spoken barely at all because she's been in California and I've been here. Nothing bad. There's no bad blood, but life happens. Shit happens. You move on. And so for the sake of this, I'll call her Cabernet because that's her favorite wine. So Cabernet remarried, had some more kids, and messaged me that she was coming up to Seattle for her 40th birthday and she'd love to see me and anyone from that crew back in the day. And I said, that's great. I haven't seen you in forever. I'm a godfather to her second child. And I haven't seen my goddaughter since she was an infant. And now she's, how old is she? 13 or some shit? It's crazy. I don't know what the fucking time's gone. So anyway, I reached out to some of the crew. None of them could make it, so it was just me. And so I went out to Seattle, which Seattle looks like, well, let me rephrase. Where I was in Seattle, 3rd Avenue, it looks like Russia's been bombing it for a week and a half. Jesus Christ, I don't know what happened in my city, but anyway, I went out there and I met her and her new husband, who I also haven't met. And we just kind of caught up, and she really opened up to me about, if it wasn't for me and 2 other people that we worked with at the time, she does not know what would have happened to her. She had no family here, no friends. She was in a very abusive marriage at the time with a real piece of shit human being. And I remember her ex-husband. I thought he was a great guy back in the day, but then as I saw what was happening and I saw how much of a misogynistic asshole he was and just a monster. They were going through marriage issues and she wanted a divorce. She was much younger than him. He basically said, fuck that, took her kid to Mexico. And she was left up here. She has no friends or family up here outside her coworkers. But anyway, not to go through all this gossip and personal drama here, but Cabernet told me that it meant a lot to her. And without me, and my mother helped her out. my good friends at the bank. I mean, we all helped each other out, but she really wanted to make sure I understood that it was mostly me and two other people. And she was getting teary-eyed talking about it, and it dawned on me that I never thought of it like that. I thought of it of just being a good friend. I didn't think it was abnormal what I was doing. And I told her this, and she said, "No, Angelo, I don't think you understand. Most people would not do what you did for me." And she reminded me of things that I completely forgot about that I did. I drove her to the hospital many times because her husband refused to while she was 8 months pregnant. I picked her kids up from daycare because her husband would not do it and she had to work. I was her only outlet, really. Well, not just me, but at work, she said that I was one of the few people she could talk to about her life. And we became like sisters and brothers. And it was just something that caught me off guard because I thought we were going to talk about the parties and the drinking and the dancing and how I dated that one girl, and it was kind of a whirlwind of adventure there. And just, I thought we were going to be a little gossipy. That's what I thought we were going to do, but I had no idea that we were going to talk about some serious shit like that. And it really, really made me feel good about myself. And I thought when I was that age, I worked with her when I was, I believe, 18 or 19 through 22 or 23. And for those handful of years, I just thought I was being normal. I thought I was doing what anyone would do. And she was quick to remind me, no, that's not normal. That's not what most best friends even do. You went far beyond that. And she wanted to tell me this in person. She said she wanted to tell me this for over a decade, but she hadn't come up here because to her, Washington State and predominantly Seattle, Maple Valley, Covington holds a lot of drama still, a lot of pain. And her new husband basically has refused to come up here because of the same reasons. Again, you just don't know these things. I started to get a little sobby, but I cry all the time, so that doesn't mean much. But to be told that I was so integral to Cabernet's life at that time and continued to be so, and that she was telling me about how her oldest children still remember me, which is astounding to me because it's been over a decade. They still talk about me. And she has two more children, 10 and 8, that I have never met, obviously. But it's so crazy to think that in a span of a couple hours, you catch up with the missing decade, and then you catch up about the few years you worked together. It's like that time never passed. It just happened the other day. And to be told that I did such good and that my heart and compassion, my empathy was all there at such a young age, where I really thought down about myself, but that I didn't put that out there. It did not affect me in the terms of how I treated my friends and family. It just goes to show me that I'm doing things right in the world, that my ideology on things, my outlook on things, and how I choose to help people and who I surround myself with, I'm making all the right decisions. And that may also feed into my hubris and narcissism and pride and whatnot, but how could it not? But if it's supported and backed up by friends and family telling me, then I have to acknowledge it. So it was a beautiful, beautiful experience. And we already talked about meeting again. She invited me to see her family and friends in Northern California. And I said, fuck it, I got nothing keeping me here. I might as well go down there and chit chat and have a little vacation. So we're actually talking about that actively. So it was just a beautiful, lovely experience. And it was not what I expected. And so sometimes it's good to be surprised. And on a lighter note, she also said that she's one of my many listeners on the podcast, which surprised me. I'm always surprised when someone reaches out to me and said they're a listener. I'm like, of my podcast? And you choose to? You're not being forced to? And she even said that my podcast has helped her out a lot as well with the different ways of viewing things, how to talk to her young kids about things, especially her older kids that are 18 and 14 or 13, I believe. So yeah, she was just praising me a bunch. I was just surprised. That's all I'm saying. That's a point I'm trying to get across. So it's lovely to have friends like that. And it's even more lovely to be told that you're making a positive influence on someone's life, past, present, and hopefully future. So with that, I think we can wrap up here. The new silent majority, people who don't tweet. Now, those of you who are not maybe political historians or American historians or historians at all, you may have heard the phrase, the silent majority. That was a term created by, I believe, Pat Buchanan, that cocksucker, traitorous scum, back in the Richard Nixon days. That another awful president. I mean, Richard Nixon, Ronald Reagan, George Bush Jr., and Donald Trump. Oh, all horrific presidents have done such long-lasting, scarring damage to this country. But anyway, it's in the phrase there, silent majority. It's the people that outnumber the loud minority, the silent majority, obviously. But this is a fun article about what the new silent majority is, the people who don't tweet. I personally do not have a Twitter account. I have never tweeted, but yet I am inundated every day with what celebrities, politicians, or just famous people, what their tweets and how somehow, some way, even journalists now retweets and view it as actual news. So that's horrific to me. That's probably my only old man feeling about things, like get off my lawn. I don't think Twitter and social media is seen as fact or should be taken seriously or should be viewed as something that journalists are going to write about. But let me go and pull up the article here. Most people you meet in everyday life, at work, and the neighborhood are decent and normal, even nice. But hit Twitter or watch the news and you'd think we were all nuts and nasty. The rising power and prominence of the nation's loudest, meanest voices obscures what most of us personally experience. Most people are sane and generous and too busy to tweet. It turns out you're right. We dug into the data and found that, in fact, most Americans are friendly, donate time or money, and would help you shovel your snow. They are busy, normal, and mostly silent. These aren't the people with big Twitter followings or cable news contracts, and they don't try to pick fights at school board meetings. So the people who get clicks and the coverage distort our true reality. 3 stats that we found reassuring. 75% of people in the US never tweet. I'm going to read that again. 75% of people in the US never tweet. On an average weeknight in January 2022, just 1% of US adults watched primetime Fox News. 0.5% tuned into MSNBC. I mean, that's staggering. 1% of US adults watch Fox News, half of that watched MSNBC. Now, the numbers are 2.2 million watched Fox News, 1.15 watched MSNBC. Nearly 3 times more Americans, 56%, donated to charities during the pandemic than typically give money to politicians and parties, which is at 21%. One chart worth sharing, as polarized as America seems, independents, who are somewhere in the middle, would be the biggest party. In Gallup's 2021 polling, 29% of Americans identified as Democrats, 27% as Republicans, 42% said they are independent. Every current trend suggests politics will get more toxic before it normalizes, but the silent majority gives us hope beyond the nuttiness. And you may think, well, Angelo, where the fuck did you get this? This was written by Erica Pandy and Mike Allen from Axios. But it illustrates what I've always believed in, what I always thought of, that Twitter is not America. Twitter is a minority of America. And in fact, I would like to see how crazy and distorted and awful Twitter has been since social media has banned Russian accounts. I mean, what did I read? That 9 out of the 10 top Christian social media sites are run from Russia. The majority of Black Lives Matter pages are run by Russia, or not all by Russia, but like by fake accounts, bots. And same thing with All Lives Matter, Blue Lives Matter, anything that distorts reality and is like team versus team mentality, distortion, disruption, divisiveness. That's not reality. That is a very, very, very small percentage of what's happening in real life. So I think get off Twitter, get off your social media, take it for what it is, a fun place to post memes. And we'll end on this. Loose camel killed 2 in Tennessee. What? A loose camel attacked and killed 2 people on a Tennessee farm. Deputies responded to Shirley Farms in Obion County, about 3 hours west of Nashville, after the camel was reported loose on a farm. When the deputies arrived, 2 victims were unconscious on the ground and the camel was still loose. The camel attacked a Obion County Sheriff's Office vehicle, then moved towards the deputies who were attempting to move a victim to EMS. It was at this time officers had to put the camel down for the safety of everyone on the scene. The victims, who died on the scene, were identified as Bobby Matheny and Tommy Gunn. Bobby was 42, Tommy was 67. Multiple police departments responded to the scene, according to the news release. I mean, good God. Again, cops put up with a lot of shit that they're not trained to do. I mean, you get you get a call that there is a loose camel on a farm and people are down. You think, okay, what fucking teenager has the 911 operator? Okay, well, this is nonsense. You show up and you probably see a enraged camel hulking over 2 bodies and then charges the vehicle. And I mean, do cops get trained to shoot a camel? I mean, I think if I was a cop and I had to put down a camel, I would turn to my badge. I would say, you know what? When I became a police officer, I thought I'd only be shooting unarmed black teenagers. Nobody said anything about shooting camels. It is sad that they had to put the camel down, but that motherfucker already took out 2 people. And the only animal that I know that has a higher death count than that are the orcas at SeaWorld. So, but how would you like to live your full life? Let's say, how old was the youngest guy? 42. Bobby Matheny was 42. And that's how you die. That is how you die. A fucking camel takes you out. And then the other guy was 67. You live 67 years. I don't know if these people are married, if they have kids or families or whatnot. But the fact is, you live your life. You think you got a sweet job at a camel farm. Next thing you know, a camel is kicking you or stomping you to death or sitting on you or spitting in your eye and headbutting you. I don't know how camels kill people. Actually, let's find that out. How do camels kill? Let's see. I'm guessing they kick you to death. Oh, wow. They're all talking about the Tennessee one. But yeah, but how? Oh, hold on a second. I mean, I was trying to look at how do camels actually fight. But there's a story that came up from 2016. The headline here is astounding. Camel bites off its owner's head after he left it tied up. Good God. I gotta read this article. Sorry, this podcast is gonna run long. I have to read this. This is from the Daily Mail. Camel bites off its owner's head after he left it tied up in the sweltering heat all day. The owner had left the camel outside in the sweltering heat in Rajasthan, India. He eventually realized and went to release the animal whose legs were tied. I mean, this guy sounds like a real pile of shit. But the camel became aggressive and picked up the owner by the neck. Jesus. The animal then started chewing his body before severing his head. Jesus Christ. I had no idea camels could do that. I thought the only animals that severed heads were Al-Qaeda terrorists doing it to missionaries. Jesus Christ. A camel. Oh my God. Is that the picture of the camel? I mean, camels are pretty fucking big. Camels are weird looking animals. It's almost like they took a giraffe and a horse and not really an elephant, but maybe what other animals that look like? Yeah, I guess I'm staying with giraffe and horse. But good God, can you imagine? Well, first off, the guy is a pile of shit leaving an animal in the heat with its legs tied up. If anyone deserves to get your head chopped off by a camel, it's this jabroni. Oh my God, but can you imagine that's how you die? That is how you die. What if I was in Rajasthan, India, just walking around on vacation, and I saw this guy's camel in the sweltering heat tied up, and I think, fuck this guy, I'm going to go save his camel. I go over to that camel, I cut his bonds off, and I say, you're free, camel. And then he immediately bites me by the neck, chews me, and decapitates me. I mean, can you imagine the ribbing and the hazing I'd get up in heaven or hell, wherever I go? Jesus Christ. A spectator told the Times of India the animal lifted him by the neck and threw him on the ground, chewed the body, and severed the head. Good God. Villagers also revealed that the same camel had attacked the owner in the past, and 25 of them struggled for 6 hours to restrain the animal. Jesus Christ. India media reports 16 deaths in the Rajasthan region, where nearly 17,000 villages in 19 of 33 districts were facing water shortages. Oh, I thought they were saying that those many people died from camels. Okay. Oh, but that camel had a checkered past to begin with, you know. But again, Jesus Christ. I mean, when you read that an animal decapitates someone, I'm thinking a bear, mountain lion, wolf, shark, hippo, something like that, an apex predator, not a fucking camel. But on that high note, watch out for camels. Treat them right, or they'll treat you. You know what I'm saying? We're done here. I love y'all. Take it sleazy. Treat others as you want to be treated, and yeah, don't be a judgmental cunt. Catch you guys on the flip side. Later, bitches.